Hey everyone, and welcome to another GST Summit. It's our 24th summit, and we're so glad to welcome you today. Sorry, we're running a little bit late due to technical difficulties. I'm going to take responsibility for that. A little bit of human error and technical difficulties, but we are here, and I am so glad to welcome 6 most amazing thought leaders this morning to the summit for you to talk about maintaining and becoming more self-disciplined in your life. These amazing speakers have got stories to share from their own experiences and strategies that should help you to maintain that in your life. So without further ado, I would like to share with you a little bit about GST, if you will allow me. So I'm going to share my screen and I will tell you a little bit about us before we get the speakers on. I'm just going to find the share screen button. Fabulous. Here we go. And I'm going to then share the PowerPoint. Okay. Just bear with me for just a second. Apologies. There we go. And okay, so we are the Global Speakers Talk, and we are a startup international company that was founded in 2021. In this public speaking industry, we organize online events to uncover, discover, and share your amazing inner voice around the globe. Global Speakers Talk is determined to raise and lift, encourage and inspire all new coaches, speakers, and trainers who are camera shy to face their fears and do it anyway. We are here for you and your voice, providing you with accountability and a welcoming, big, supportive community for positive feedback and strengthening confidence in your voice. GST's core belief is that every voice and every new voice is a story to be told. It needs to be uncovered and come into the light to grow and impact the world. Our vision is to inspire, raise, and support 1 million inner voices, empowering them to discover and embrace their full potential. So a little bit about me before we go on. I'm going to keep this very brief. I am a primary school teacher. I'm your host today, and I am a very proud member of the GST team. I actually joined very soon after, apologies, I clicked something. I joined very soon after GST was initiated by Anshu, and later on I joined the team to be part of the helping with hosting. Now, the situation was that I was actually I appeared quite confident because I've been a primary school teacher on camera. However, I would be worried for days or certainly hours way before a public event when I was on the camera. So I had a problem particularly with the computer and having the camera on Zoom, not so much being on a stage. So that was really my problem, and I had great fear over it. But to face my fears, I jumped in and became the host of the Be Fearless podcast. And I have to say that I would credit the Be Fearless podcast and the guests as well as the wonderful community we have at GST for helping me to overcome my crippling fear of being in front of the camera. I still have a normal amount of fear when I go on the camera. However, it is a normal amount of fear and excitement, and I'm living my life a little bit more fearlessly every day as a result when I go live. So that's a little bit about me. I'll just tell you that I am a children's book illustrator, and I am also I have my own business now where I help parents with their children, 3 to 8 year olds, working with them on their learning at home. So supporting them with their learning and encouraging parents rather than to reach out for a tutor to be empowered to do that themselves with their families and build those special bonds and memories using really fun and engaging activities. I'm very much an advocate for play for children, even up to the end of primary school, wherever possible, learning through play and interactive activities that are fun, so that children find learning an exciting experience and they become lifelong learners. So that's what I'm all about. I'm also very passionate about people finding their story and making sure that they get it out to the world. So I think everybody's got a story in them, and you shouldn't let the fear of public speaking hold you back. You should always try and work on finding a way, because even if you think you can't do it, you can. Because if I can do it, I feel like everybody must be able to, because I was scared. So I would just wanted to share that with you. And now I'm going to move on to sharing our first speaker today. I am so proud to welcome the first speaker to the stage. Paul Wilson is a leadership coach, and he's also the author of Guru You, which is a book that he has written. Oh, apologies, I've done it again. Paul is a management and leadership trainer and coach. So he is an author and a speaker, as I mentioned, and his specialist areas are in behavioral psychology, emotional intelligence, and human givens. He's also an ex-martial arts instructor. So he has a lot this afternoon, this morning, this evening, wherever you are, to share with us about the art of self-discipline. And without any further ado, at this time, I would like to welcome to the stage Mr. Paul Wilson, everybody.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction. And thank you all. I'm a fairly new member to the group, and I feel really, really honoured. I really do. Very privileged to share some of my learnings. And I'm really glad that you phrased lifelong learner there, Lisa, because that's what I consider myself. And I think my job here really, I suppose, is to set the scene, because I know some of the top content that some of the other speakers are going to talk about today. So I'm going to be fairly broad with the concept of self-discipline and why it's important. And I'm just hopefully going to open the door then to for everybody else to build on, because there's two lots of subject matters that I'd like to discuss. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just make sure that I'm not running over time as well. So I've just started my watch. I don't want to outstay my welcome. So yeah, the two aspects of self-discipline I'd like to talk about is the self-discipline of time management and why that's important. And the second aspect is more the self-discipline of disciplining oneself internally. So our internal dialogue and so on, which I know definitely somebody else is going to be talking about later on. So let me just first of all talk about the importance of time. I'll just give you a little bit of background. Over the last few years, this has become even more pertinent to me. Apart from being a lifelong learner and always open to study and reading new materials and new thought leadership models. A couple of life events happened to us which made time feel really, really precious. And they were health related. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with a health condition, which actually claimed my father's life within 10 years of him being diagnosed. My wife at the time was also going through chemotherapy. She's fine now, by the way. But and for people that have had those kind of conditions, I'm sure you all understand it's really, really difficult when somebody you love is going through, a sickness or an illness and treatment and so on. And it really makes you look at time as being really, really special. And on top of that, at the same time as going through all of those things, I happened to read an ancient piece of text by the philosopher Seneca, and it's his treatise on the shortness of life, and it was written in something like AD 56, and what he was saying still holds true today. I'm going to slightly paraphrase Seneca here because he used slightly different language, quite misogynistic language as well. So I'm going to slightly paraphrase him and said, and he basically said, if we could all know the date that we were going to die, how much more precious would we spend the rest of the time that we've got in front of us? What an amazing thought that is. Because we're all going to go, let's face facts. And we don't often think about that. I'm not being morbid here, by the way. I'm trying to do it in terms of a really life-affirming way. So if we all knew that, how much more precious would we make time? And I'm going to now do I'm going to jump from Seneca to my book, Guru You. How about that for a plug? And in this, I've always believed in the concept of, I've studied Buddhism for many years, and we're always looking at the whole exterior guru, people to tell us what to do, how to do it. There's actually a radio series on at the moment on Radio 4 in the UK, and it's called The New Gurus, which I find absolutely fascinating. 15 minutes, I like podcasts. So anyone who want to listen to it, it's absolutely brilliant. And there was one I listened to recently about productivity gurus. And there was one, there was something I came across by an author called Oliver Burkeman. I don't know if anyone's actually come across this book called 4,000 Weeks. Anyone heard of that? 4,000 Weeks. Yeah, I can see a couple of nods there. 4,000 weeks basically equates to 77 years. Or a decent lifespan, 77 years. Well, that's only 4,000 weeks. Now, that's a sobering thought in itself, isn't it? So I'm going to narrow that down a little bit more in terms of how precious time is, yeah? And how we've got to be self-disciplined to make the most of that time. So let's say that's 77 years. I'm going to minus 17 years. Because whether that's the first 17 years of our lives or maybe the first 10 plus 7 at the end, whatever it is, I'm just going to say we've got 60 years. Now, we're asleep for a third of that. We're asleep for 8 hours out of 24, there or thereabouts. So we're going to narrow it down again. So there's a third off. So there's 40 years. None of us work 16 hours a day. We work on average 8 hours a day. So there's another third. So that's 20 years. Rarely do we work 7 days a week unless we're doing something that we really love. So 5/7 of is actually 14 years. That actually equates to 1,000 weeks. 1,000 weeks, that's all we've got to cram in all the stuff that we've actually got to do. If we're lucky. Because we're all very lucky to be able to have, Chris was talking about power shortages, yeah? We're very lucky to have electricity. We're very lucky to have the internet. We're very lucky to have, I can't imagine what it'd be like to live in a war zone. Think of the people in Ukraine at the moment. What would it be like to be a refugee? What would it be like to be encumbered by a life of illness or sickness? I've just read an article in the paper this morning, a man that served 17 years in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. All of these things that whittle away on those precious 1,000 weeks. And for us that are so fortunate to have a roof over our head and food in our bellies and freedoms, that's why we've got to make the most of the time that we've got left. We've got to discipline ourselves to be able to say, this time is precious. And what we've got is a precious gift of being able to then look at the time that we have and make it really precious. So that's what self-discipline of time management is about. Making the most of what we've got and therefore dividing it into where can we be the most efficient. And that's not to say we always have to be working, because obviously recreation is important and exercise is important and meditation is important. All of these things are important to maintain balance in our lives. So that's one side, the time management, and I hope other people can build on that. Is that something you can run with? Yeah, I know some of you have got some thoughts on productivity and time management. So I just thought I'd keep it very kind of broad and general. The second one, just give me a couple of minutes on this, is the management of self. The management of mind. this stems from, apart from my fascination, why I became a behavioral psychologist, what makes us tick, how to get the most out of how we live. A couple of years ago, actually, it was when I was on a train, I was watching somebody read a book and I just loved the title. And it was called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I don't know if anyone's ever come across that, by Dr. Joe Dispenza. A magnificent read. In fact, what actually happened was the passenger opposite me was reading it, and then when he went to the toilet, he left the book on the table, and I did it. It was almost like I was a spy. I grabbed hold of the book, turned it around, took a photograph of it, put it back, and then when he came back in, I kind of pretended I didn't read it. But straight away, we had this amazing conversation. It was like a meeting of minds. We got off at the same train station. We bowed to each other before we left. It was an amazing thing, and this book has really changed me, because what it says is we must be aware of the internal dialogue that takes place between what Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Blink said, between the click and the word, between what happens to us, what he calls the inciting incident, and our behavior. And sometimes we think it's instantaneous. Something happens, then we react in a certain way. And Joe Dispenza, in his book, Breaking the Habits, basically says that's because we tend to, 98% of our behaviors are purely habitual. So we get the inciting response and then we always react in the same way. Now, there is actually a gap between the inciting incident and the response. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, said just that. He said between what happens and what are the inciting incident and the response, therein lies our freedom. The freedom to make a choice, to say, do I always go down the avenue that I've always done? As Maslow said, if we always do what we've always done, we're always going to get what we've always got. Or do I take a moment to go, do you know what, I'm going to try something different here. I'm going to be mindful of my response. And by doing that, we actually open up a new synaptic pathway in the brain. The plasticity of the brain comes in here. We will always go down the avenue where the synaptic pathway is open, but if we want to change something, we've got to open up a new synaptic pathway. That becomes the new habit. And it frees ourselves, from that negative internal dialogue, that overcritical sense that we have. I'll never be any good at this. I can't do that. Don't listen to that dialogue. Create a new habit. I can see Lisa nodding there, absolutely, because it's about that freedom that I talked about earlier on. And we must all, it's a deliberate act. We must all exercise those freedoms. Otherwise, we devalue freedom itself. And not just that, but for all of those that have those freedoms, we owe it to those that don't have these freedoms to do this. So we're in a very fortunate position. Let's make the most of it. So I'm pretty sure that's 10 minutes. So I hope that starts us off well. Thank you for your time.
Wow, Paul, that was actually 10 minutes on the nail, virtually. Well done. I mean, gosh, what an amazing way to start our summit this morning. I don't know about you, but I had a lot of takeaways from that. That was really insightful, and it's a scary thought that we've only got those 1,000 weeks. When you look at it like that and break it down, 52 weeks in a year. Wow, it really is quite it gets you thinking. I loved your story about that book and how that changed your life, you know, and that meeting of minds as well. Just incredible. There it is. Yeah. Unfortunately, because of the background, it's slightly blurred, but we can, so I mean, gosh, it just shows that one moment can change everything for us, can't it? And also, you know, you're talking about just not letting anything hold you back. All of the takeaways in that, so many to mention. If you have a takeaway, please do share it with us in the chat on Facebook. We would love to hear it. Also, if you're watching on replay, please put #replay so that we know that you came and listened to Paul's wisdom. We've got some comments here. Paul, excellent, Paul, so valuable. Thank you very much. That was incredible. such an amazing point of view. Someone was saying during the chat, the perspective of lifespan. Thank you. And otherwise we devalue freedom itself. Wow. So yeah, lots of great takeaways. Thank you for kicking off our summit this morning so brilliantly, and we are so glad to have you. Thank you for being here, Paul. And
the devaluing freedom thing only came to me last night, and it was one of those things where, oh my God, I've got to write this down.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Sometimes they only come to us even in that moment when you're there sharing, isn't it? And there's so much wisdom to give, you can't get it into 10 minutes. So yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing. I'd like to just at this point say, you know, that Paul's book is available on Amazon Guru U if you want to check that out. And obviously the title of the book that you were talking about was I have it here, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That was the one that you mentioned, wasn't it, as well? Okay, so without further ado, I'd like us to move to our second speaker this I'm going to say this afternoon because I'm here in the UK and it is this afternoon. So I'm going to just share with you our next speaker. And coming up, we have Navi Garcia, who is a certified voice artist. I would just like to check, can everybody see my screen? Because I think there was some difficulty with screen sharing earlier. Can we now see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, we can see that.
That is amazing. I'm so happy to know about that. That's great. So Navi works as a full-time executive partner for Mad Realities, which is a US-based Web3 tech company. It mainly focuses on developing the entertainment platform for creative visionaries to distribute and unlock their most genius ideas. Outside of work on most days, he is a certified voice artist who gives his gift of his voice to make other people better and happy with greatness and excellence. He is a lead mentor in the Certified Voice Artist Program, which is based in the Philippines. Diagnosed with major depressive disorder when he was 18, bipolar disorder more than 5 years ago, Navi has faced these extreme struggles and challenges with low confidence, random bursts of anxiety, lack of self-discipline, all of which he was able to strongly overcome in 2021 after a major shift in his heart set and mindset. Since then, Navi has been driven to share how he managed to survive a world where his greatest enemy was his own psyche. And I would like, without further ado, to introduce you to this man, Mr. Navi Garcia. I would love for you to join the stage.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was really a wonderful intro. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, great day, everyone, wherever you are in the world, you know, in Zoom and on Facebook Live. Great day, and thank you for taking the time to be with us to learn how to build and maintain self-discipline. I would agree with Paul earlier that, you know, there's loads to be talked about on the topic of self-discipline. And I've had my share of challenges on the subject, so it's very, very relatable. And it's probably because it really did, or until now, it does make up a part of who I am. And, you know, honestly, I haven't been self-disciplined for long, but I think my experience, as drastic and as tragic as it is what landed me a spot to be here, to share what I've learned in life. So, self-discipline, there's a bunch of other definitions, and let's just go over some of the common ones. So it's the ability to control one's own behavior in order to achieve a goal or a desired outcome. Some people define it as the ability to make yourself do things when you should, even if you don't really want to do them. But essentially, it's a quality for anyone looking to achieve what we perceive as success. And apparently, it's also the very quality that a lot of people struggle with, especially those with mental health challenges, which I am advocating strongly. Those who experience depression and anxiety, those living with bipolarity, those struggling with ADHD or PTSD. Well, basically people like me. So, you know, 2 years ago, that was me. I was someone just like a lot of you here and those watching on Facebook Live. lacking self-discipline, lacking the willingness to make a change to our stagnant life. We lack the ability to sustain our motivation. And what made it even more difficult during that time is the fact that I suffered from a series of mental illnesses. So, I was diagnosed with depressive disorder, and despite the therapy and the medicine, that feeling of hopelessness, it keeps coming back whenever I fail to accomplish tasks or meet my goals at work. Because honestly, I was a chronic procrastinator. I mean, who isn't? I mean, a lot of us here, we're here because we wanted to learn how to overcome that. So fast forward to 2019, between these anxiety attacks, another diagnosis came out. So I wasn't just depressed, I had bipolar disorder type 2. And that actually explains the longer lasting and more severe episodes of depression, which contributed to me not being able to do what I needed to do. I lost my job, I lost friends, and some family ties were also severed. But what's worse is I went through abuse, alcohol, substances, night stuff. I was I was a clear definition of a person without discipline back then. Not a tinge. And yeah, I would consider that the lowest and the darkest point of my life. But I knew I had to do something about it. So aside from seeing my therapist, I looked online, looked for books, I searched for tips, tricks, like step-by-step processes on building and maintaining self-discipline. And materials that we find online, they're not wrong. They're far from it. But despite me getting a lot of these, I still failed to build the self-discipline that I wanted to. I mean, how difficult could it get, right? I had all these behavioral issues because of the chemical imbalance in my brain. I what else could go wrong? But back in 2021, I made that big decision in my life. I got a scholarship grant to the Certified Voice Artist program here in the Philippines. But even then, being a chronic procrastinator, I failed to submit my documents on time, but they still gave me the grant anyway. Now, most of you guys might be wondering, why am I blabbing on with my life story instead of jumping right into the topic? It's mainly because I'm here. I'm representing our organization as a certified voice artist, and our life purpose is to make our voices heard, to make our stories known. And I have reason to believe that my personal take on building and maintaining self-discipline is deeply anchored to the passion, the purpose, and the values of the Certified Voice Artist program. And I want to take this chance, of course, to thank the people who made this event possible today, because Global Speakers Talk gave me this chance to share my knowledge and my story. So, to some, it may sound like, being so self-centered, because most of us are used to the idea that, you shouldn't talk about yourself too much, that, if you avoid highlighting yourself, that showcases humbleness. But from the topic itself today, self-discipline, our focus is improving our very self. So I would love to share my screen here so we could have a bit of a visual. Can I do that? Okay, let's see. There. Let's take a look at this quote by Lao Tzu. It says here that mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. So this resonates deeply with what self-discipline is about, because it's gaining control over, your thoughts, your behavior, and eventually making these thoughts and behavior work for you and not against you. Now, how on earth do we do that, right? How do you master yourself and gain that so-called true power? So I would like to share and use the letters from the acronym of the program I came from. So we have the Certified Voice Artist Program that makes up the acronym CVAP or CVAP. But I'm here to make it better for everyone. So let's look at CVAP 2.0. I'd love you all to take a note of these acronyms, because this is how we build self-discipline the certified voice artist way. So building self-discipline starts with C. That's the choice. As soon as you've decided to choose to know yourself better, you're already on the right track. It may sound easy, but it's trickier than that, especially for people like us, or at least the former me, who lack willpower, we lack motivation. And this is why this is the first recommended step. You have to be determined in selecting that choice. Choose to make a better version of yourself. And then next, we go to the letter V, which is the vision. What is your vision of yourself? How do you see yourself in a week from now? What do you want to be to, like after a month? Who are you after a year or 5 years, 10 years, 15? Who knows? Bottom line is you need to know who you want to be. And you need to have that picture in your mind. You have to visualize your future self and then write it down, draw it. You have to make it seen because you have to have a clear vision of the future you. Now, why is that important? Because as soon as you have a clear vision of who you want to become and what you want to achieve, the next thing to do is to conduct the letter A, which is an analysis. You have to assess yourself. You have to compare and you have to, like compare and contrast. You have to look at your vision, the person that you visualized, and then take a good look at yourself. Is the person that you want to become doing the things that you are doing? If not, well, congratulations. You have identified something that you can work on. Now you think you can already begin rebuilding yourself, like your thoughts, your words, your actions, your life. But you have to look into two other things before you dive right in. It's important that you identify the two important P's in our lives. That's our passion and our purpose. Now, questions would be like, what is it that you want to achieve in your career? Like for fellow voice actors like myself, what do you really want? What do you really aspire to do that makes your heart happy? Those who are also doing remote work, serving the needs of executives living on the other side of the world, what is your definition of your purpose? For the writers, the authors, coaches, the financial advisors, executives, what else? To everyone else with different careers, what values do you hold that are important to you in your work? And is that whatever you're doing, is it serving your true purpose? Does it ignite your passion? Because once you have a clear understanding of these things, you can start setting specific and achievable goals for yourself and eventually develop a plan to reach them. So now that you have completed CVAP 2, you can effectively follow the steps that most articles that you read teach you for goal setting and self-discipline, because you are now within your ground zero. So how to build self-discipline? You have to think CVAP 2.0. C is choice, choose to be better, visualize your future, assess your current self, identify your passion and purpose. You have to do what you love and you have to give meaning to your life. And this is your ground zero. Another question remains, how do you maintain that? One very effective way to maintain self-discipline is for us, it's to focus on our values and our purpose. So when we are faced with a difficult decision or a challenge and moving forward with certain tasks or a project, you might want to ask yourself, does this align with your values and purpose? If your answer is no, then it's probably not worth pursuing. You have to follow your heart and your gut feel. You have to really, really trust yourself. Even if you're like, someone that I used to be, mentally unstable, you have to trust yourself when your mind and body says no. But if you still went ahead and you find yourself struggling so bad, that's on you. What's important here is for you guys to realize that you have to do what you love and you have to love what you do, so that whatever it is that you do will also love you. That's passion. And that is the ultimate key to self-discipline. Because if you start doing something that resonates with the inner you, your self-discipline comes along without even forcing it. So going back to Lao Tzu's quote earlier on, mastering others is strength, mastering yourself is true power. You have to master yourself. You have to discover your inner self. Now, one key person who helped me discover my inner self in the midst of my emotional meltdown and mental tornado was my mentor, Pocholo de Leon Gonzalez, who's also known as a voice master of the Philippines. So he's basically a well-known voice artist here, and the best actually in the Philippines. He's also a coach and a mentor, and he's helped many aspiring voice actors like myself to develop their craft, and we achieve success in the industry. he was the one who taught me the importance of developing my skills and staying true to my values and staying focused on my goals. Pocholo's guidance and relentless support, it really did help me gain the confidence and knowledge I needed to pursue my passion and also identify my purpose as a voice actor. So, identifying my passion and purpose, it really did unlock a whole new perspective, a new mindset, a new heart set, and all of this drove me towards rebuilding myself. But then again, here are some reminders. You have to remember that there is no one size fits all solution. And building and maintaining self discipline is a continuous process that requires focus, dedication, commitment to your passion, your purpose, and your values. You have to remember to set specific and achievable goals. You have to focus on your values, your purpose, and seek out guidance and support from mentors like I had Pocholo, who helped me out. But above all, remember to be kind to yourself, because self-discipline is not only about pushing yourself to do something even if you find it difficult. Self-discipline is also knowing when to take a break, when to pause, when to stop yourself from from burning yourself out. And with that, I'd like to leave you guys with a short poem I wrote 2 days ago. It's titled, "Hey, We're Okay." After what I've gone through that made me this way, some still wonder how I get up each day. The truth is, I don't. And that's okay. Some days I surrender. In bed, I would stay. Some days I go all out. Some days I just lay. Some days I'm confident of the thoughts I convey. And some days I sit still with my mind in disarray. And that's all right. That's okay. Let's rest. Let's pause when we need to. And not only if we may. Because no matter what they say, at the end of the day, we were born to effing slay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Navi. That was really, again, a very insightful, sharing your wisdom. I'm just going to say, I love the quote that you used, mastering yourself is the true power. Absolutely. And the fact that you focused on the vision, thinking about your vision of the future, making sure it's aligning with all of your own values and your purpose, and using those to drive and make the decision to focus on your passion and purpose in order to maintain that self-discipline. I loved your poem at the end. Thank you so much for sharing and for being so vulnerable with us today. I'm sure that in sharing your story and your wisdom today has helped somebody listening to our podcast, to our summit. Yeah.
Really.
And I thank you very much again for being vulnerable. That was Navi Garcia, and today we have another guest coming up. So I'm going to share my screen and share with you that we have coming up next to the stage is Rob Tromp, and Rob is a spiritual coach. Now, we're so happy to have Rob with us because he has worn very many hats in his 63-year journey. He's come from the shy egghead, excuse me, physics major that graduated from the Phi Beta Kappa and he's gone from there to sales at Schlumber Well Services, then on to multiple expat assignments with HP in Germany and China, on to being an actor and voice talent and acting coach, a spiritual teacher of the Omnist Way in his semi-retirement, where he's now located in Indonesia. So he shares his perspectives on how to identify and achieve meaningful personal goals and deal with the disappointment of not being able to accomplish everything that you would like to do in a single incarnation. So today I'd like you to give a big welcome to Rob to the stage, and I am going to Stop share, and then Rob should be on speaker view. Rob, can you come to
Hello,
the stage?
folks. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, indeed we can. Thank you.
Excellent.
Looking forward
Okay,
to
well, thanks for the great introduction. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me. And I think I'm maybe going to break a little bit of the mold of talking about self-discipline because I have worn so many hats. One would be tempted to think I wasn't very self-disciplined. In fact, I'm a very self-disciplined person, but my discipline, what I'm a disciple of, has been changing quite a bit over my lifetime. And unlike most people, I decided not to stay focused on one thing and decided to go follow new things. So I'm going to give a bit of a contrarian idea of self-discipline. I think probably the hardest self-discipline to develop is the discipline to be able to change directions when you need to. And that's a good chunk of what I do now. To start out with, let's just drop back and talk about what is self-discipline. What is discipline? Well, discipline, we can think of it as punishment. He was disciplined for his misbehavior. We can think of it as a calling. This is my discipline. I study medicine or whatever. It also relates to the word disciple, which definitely has a spiritual connotation, who you follow. If you're self-disciplined, then apparently you've got yourself as a guru, which is a good place to be, but it doesn't give you anybody to blame when things don't go right. So discipline has all these characteristics to it, and how you view it can have a great effect on your ability to have discipline and to manage it. I think it's unhealthy to think of discipline as punishment, but maybe that's, some people, they find that's the best way to move forward. Maybe you're like one of the medieval monks who goes, Pie Jesus Domine, and hits himself over the head so they stop thinking evil thoughts. If that works for you, that's a discipline that works for you. Self is another very difficult concept. What is the self? Those of you who are more of a materialist bent think of the self as, well, it's like the manifestation of my brain, my mind, which is my brain, which is the result of a bunch of random interactions of chemicals and molecules that produce electrical pulses and somehow magically make me think. Okay, that's one way of approaching it. I don't agree with that. To my way of thinking, the self is the soul. It is basically a consciousness, an individual consciousness that grows and learns as the soul goes through life after life of incarnation and experience and choice. In fact, the human incarnated soul is just the leader of a soul group. If you think of the body as a collection of cells, each cell has its own operating system, its own program that it runs, its own decisions it has to make. And because there's not a direct interface between you and them, it pretty much acts autonomously. Other collections of cells become organs or systems, and they have a certain autonomy. They have their programming, they know what they're supposed to do, and they do it, and until they run into a problem they can't handle, and that's when they let you know, I'm not feeling well. I've got a problem here. Maybe you should take me to the doctor or something. The organs that have the most effect on us, who talk to us the most, are the brains. There's not just one brain. Anybody who's studied the anatomy of the nervous system knows that the brain has two hemispheres, and within those hemispheres, there are different pieces that have different functions, which are pretty much autonomous. In addition, there is another small vestigial brain in the heart. Many people aren't aware of that, but there is a small brain in your heart that has pretty much the same kind of cells, the same kind of function as the brain in your head. These three brains are kind of your primary voices that, folks that have been diagnosed as bipolar or schizophrenic, maybe aren't as crazy as they thought. They're just more in touch with these other voices, which have their own souls. Now, most of these other souls in your body are low-level souls. They're like artificial reality souls, virtual souls. They have a program they run. They work on that operating system. They do what they're supposed to do, and they try not to cause a problem until they need some attention. It is very possible that some of your more important subsouls might have a fair amount of experience and choose you because maybe they weren't so successful as a human being running the whole show, but they wanted some experience as the heart. And folks that feel that influence of talking to themselves, most people know what I'm talking about when they say, well, I'm having an argument with myself. I'm conflicted. This is actually what's going on internally. You are having an argument because there's other souls within you that have their own needs, their own desires. Many people that generally tend to be ruled by one of these three main brains. The heart brain is the emotional brain, the one that uses emotion to figure things out, feelings. The right brain is the dreamer, the castle builder, imagining what could be, what should be, what I'd rather have things be, and creating artificial realities, if you will, that bring happiness to its part of the kingdom. The left brain is the doer, the one that is like, okay, this is the way things are. This is what I got to do. I've got all this. And you tend to see an association of people who are very highly self-disciplined to be dominated by this left brain. And they are the leaders, the movers, the shakers, very focused, directed people. They also are the ones that have the tendency to jump over the most cliffs because they don't look where they're going. And this is why in a healthy organization, you'll see that the leaders often have a few people around them that are more right-brained, that sort of give them this perspective of, well, did you think about this? Did you think about that? What if? And this is a very common pattern in successful organizations. The CEO will have like a set of advisors, a cabinet, if you will, a bunch of disciples to help them be disciplined in a better way. So thinking from that standpoint, the soul is the one that has to decide which one to listen to. And the whole point of having this body, the whole point of having an incarnation is for your soul to experience having to live within the filter, within the perspective of this very limited body that you occupy for some number of years. And why is that? Well, when we didn't have bodies before all of creation started, it was a land of pure thought, pure consciousness. The only means that souls had to communicate was with the exchange of spiritual energy. As any of you may know, who've ever known somebody who was the kind of person who could read auras, who had intuition, they are energy readers. Now, sometimes they're wrong because it's very difficult to categorize that energy, especially if you don't have any language to do it with. And so this is the game that we're playing, is learning to develop new language, new culture, new inventions, new physical realities to give us a better way to understand our soul and to work with other souls. So it's really kind of a game. And I think, this gaming aspect of life is something that's really important, that's easy to lose track of when you become too disciplined, too self-focused. And the dangers of disciplining yourself are either you become so narrowly focused on your particular goal, what you want out of life, that you lose track of other things that are going to be pretty important, like having a family, having children, successful relationships, having a healthy diet, getting enough exercise. And those things won't haunt you right away, but eventually they will start affecting your discipline and causing the wheels to start falling off of your fast moving cart. And most of you who've known somebody who very successful people in late career find that, they frequently have very serious health problems, mental breakdowns, midlife crises, and sometimes they don't come out of those so well. Could lead to suicide, could lead to complete breakdown, the disintegration of relationships, all sorts of things that you wouldn't want to have. So it's important to not only maintain focus, the focus of self-discipline, but be able to switch directions. Now, how do you do that? Well, basically, it's all programming. I spent most of my corporate career developing and testing programs and systems, distributed systems, which is kind of how I came to understand the body and the mind like I do. You can program through any of these three brains. You can also program your soul directly, because your soul is like a free range brain. You can direct your thoughts anywhere you want. You can create mentally anything you want, anytime you want. It's not real. It's not real, but you can give it a spiritual reality, a form of thought. And basically, what I focus on doing with folks is a technique I call active meditation. It's something I learned when I was an actor. If you can imagine, you're an actor sitting in an audition waiting room, waiting to audition for the lead role in a major motion picture, and you're looking around. There's 20 or 30 other people in there, look similar to you, some better looking, some taller, some shorter. You're kind of looking around, evaluating who your competition is, what you're going to do, and you're waiting for your turn to go in. You don't know exactly when they're going to call you. It might be 3 hours, it might be 3 minutes. And when you go in, you've got to be ready to be immediately in the scene that you've been cast to play. Could be very emotional scene. You could be, just on the verge of committing suicide. You could be in the deepest depression, and you've got to be able to turn that on a dime. So one of the techniques that actors use to do this is something similar to this technique I call active meditation. It's basically a way of manipulating your emotional state, your brain state, to be more focused on one thing, on letting one brain rule, whichever one has the best image of the character you want to present. So in my dream state, my creative state when I'm not on stage, I'm very much the shy, introverted, creative thinker, dreamer. That was my childhood self. When I turn on my actor state, I'm this guy who's talking and blah, 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 who could sit here and talk to you for 5 hours and never run out of something to say. And that is another me that I can turn on. And it's not always easy to turn on because it depends on your mood, but through this active meditation technique, which is different than most normal meditation, just focuses on emptying yourself. That's an important state, but being empty it's calming, but it sort of leaves you open to programming. And I find that many spiritual gurus focus more on programming their state into you than they do on letting you develop states that are useful to yourself. So fundamentally, what I teach is a way to walk around your body yourself. This is I'll give you a story from my Hewlett-Packard days that kind of illustrates how this works on a macro scale. The company Hewlett-Packard was started by two guys, Dave Hewlett and Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard. And these were two engineer geeky guys who started this company in their garage. They wanted to have test equipment that was better than what they could buy off the shelf because they were tinkering with circuits and stuff like that back in the 1950s. They started this huge multi-billion-dollar company and stayed with it throughout their lifetimes. And one of the things they always did throughout the time that they were involved in it is they would make trips to the different sites and not just go give them a dog and pony show and tell them how great Hewlett-Packard was and all these normal corporate CEO things. They would actually go and take a couple of hours to go walk around the labs and see what people were doing. Not planned, not announced. They just walk in. Some guy is sitting in front of an oscilloscope and they'd ask, well, hey, what are you looking at there? They wouldn't even let the guy know who it was. And engineers can be very focused. They wouldn't even know that it was like the CEO of the company behind him asking questions. They just start talking about what they were doing. And many of the biggest inventions that Hewlett-Packard came up with came out of those walking around sessions of some engineer was working on something interesting and probably didn't want his boss to know about it, but he this was his passion. This is how the printer business got started. So this technique is kind of a version of that works within your body. It's a management by walking around, getting to know your body personally and kind of bypassing these three brains that are really nice co-processors. They're very helpful to you, but they can get in the way because they sort of have their own idea of how to manage things. Yeah, so I think that's the nexus of what I wanted to cover here. If you're interested to learn more, I do a podcast called The Omnist Hour, and I've written a couple of books on my spiritual take, which you can take it or leave it. Just to give you a hint of where I come from in this, I don't follow any particular normal spiritual or religious practice. I'm an integrator, along with my background in science. If it doesn't pass the sniff test of spiritual science, then I question it. And with my experience in distributed systems, that for me says that creation is a concerted effort, each individual soul creating in their own space. And I think that pretty much matches what everybody knows about how the internet works, about how human systems work. There's not one monolithic ruler of the internet, or hopefully won't be, that is going to direct how everybody works. That's not a good model for success. Globalism in its current form has made things brittle and unwieldy. And I think we've seen that in spades in the last couple of years. And hopefully we'll start realizing there are better ways to organize our human society like we organize our bodies, like the creators organized our bodies. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Rob, for sharing your wisdom. I've actually got some comments out here in the thread. Great tips on discipline and about the brains, the heart brain, and the right and left side of the brain. And what I took from it was the importance again of people. I noticed that's a thread that comes through lots of things. You can't do it. We're not an island. We can't do anything alone. You were saying, even if you're inclined to be one of those successful people who's able to be driven in that way because they're using more of that side of the brain, they still need some others to maybe dampen that down and so forth. We can all do whatever we want to do. We don't have to have that particular brain.
Right. That's another thing that ties with
ourselves.
what you learn as an actor. You have to learn how to step in the foreground and step in the background and work in an ensemble.
Nice.
And
yeah.
there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. I think everybody should have a chance to take an acting course sometime in their life, or an improv course. It's really eye-opening.
That's interesting, actually. Yeah, I'm sure it is, very much so. And you know, I liked the fact as well that you talked about, you know, not letting that overbalance of self-discipline in any area of your life. You know, you've got to still maintain that balance, and you've got to keep that focus. So you don't want to be too self-disciplined in one area. So thank you so much, Rob, for sharing all of that. If you had some takeaways, please do share them in our Facebook group. And like I say, all of the speakers today, you'll be able to contact them. We'll make sure their details are available in the Facebook chat. And I'm so glad you were able to join us today. Thank you, Rob. And we're going to move very swiftly on to our next speaker, who is sharing with us today. We actually have halfway through, and we have 3 new speakers to share. So I would like to share with you Maggie, who's coming up next. Now, Maggie Englander is an NLP coach, and she actually lives here in London, same as me. And she is a founder of the company Rewiring Yourself, and the G100 Global Empowerment Movement Chair for the Oneness and Wisdom Wing for the Southeast of England. She's also a health strategist and burnout consultant. Now, Maggie specializes in a variety of therapies that, together with a healthy lifestyle, medicine, and coaching, has been helping clients for over 20 years to reverse cardiovascular diseases and heal emotional roots of illness and recover from burnouts. So Maggie's company, as I said, is called Rewiring Yourself, and she's on all social media, so you can find her on those platforms. And she would like to take this time to invite you to her Facebook community, which is called Inner Potential. You can find her at www.rewiringyourself.com, and her slogan is Unleashing Powers Within You to Overcome Stress, Burnouts, and Ill Health. And we're going to hear from Maggie about her take and her stories about self-discipline. Maggie, please come to the stage. Welcome, Maggie. Look forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
Thank you for having me at this summit. It's so nice to see new faces, and it's a privilege to be here. So it's so great to be amongst each other, as I said, just to share our thoughts, our experiences, our life journeys with each other. It's just so amazing. So even though we lead separate lives, live in separate houses, we all have the same purpose in life: to belong, to love, to be certain, to feel significant, and to make a bigger impact, and to know that we do matter. And why does it matter? As we all in it together. Self-discipline has so many different faces and meanings, and it relates to all of us on so many levels, in so many aspects of our lives. On top of it, we all interpret it differently. Did you know that 95% of the world's medical conditions are being developed due to an unhealthy lifestyle? And why is that? As there is no strategy of how to stay healthy. Most of us take a good health for granted, and we start worrying about ill health only when we already become unwell. Cardiovascular diseases such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, strokes, heart diseases, and even dementia are only few out of many. Living in stress, pressures, own and other expectations, demands of societies, and desires to succeed in life, no matter what, all adds up. There is a pandemic of stress all around the world, and depression is the #1 leading cause of disability worldwide. In all of this, to so many of us, self-discipline seems to be a burden, something stressful, something that adds up to our pressures. But does it really? Is it not the case that when we label something as burden or something stressful, we don't see the other side of it too? What about if we reframe self-discipline, if we call it differently? What's about if you call it the persistence of providing the best care for your bodies and hearts? How differently you would start implementing discipline in your life. There will be no need to surround ourselves with addictions, desperately trying to stay afloat of the stress, worries we face daily. The stress would lessen. The hospital's admission would lessen. The overwhelming rate of the worldwide obesity would lessen. The amount of medication would lessen. The pandemic of worldwide ill mental health would lessen. There will be much less addictions and overall illnesses. Depression would stop being the leading cause of disability worldwide. And our families would stay together, living in harmony and happiness, and not only on holidays. Did you know that smoking 15 cigarettes a day is as damaging to our physical health as social isolation is to our emotional health? Self-discipline is a broad umbrella of helpful tools that we all use to help ourselves and each other to stay healthy, happy, to thrive and blossom in our lives, no matter what paths we are on. Self-discipline is a term for self-loving strategies. And why does it matter? Because we are in it together. How differently our lives would have been if we surround ourselves with help that doesn't bring side effects. But let's start from the young age. When we are being born, we are all bubbly, a bit chubby babies, right? As long as our basic needs are being met, we are happy. Our parents know what to do with us. There's a discipline in how they raise us up, how we are being talked to and loved by them. Growing up, we grow in strengths. And when we are strong, we feel like being able to move the mountains. We can do anything at any time of the day. But we don't learn about self-discipline. We feel like Superman, believing in happiness, success, great health, to have all at the same time, naturally. Diabetes or depression is just alien to us. It will never happen. We convince ourselves every day. With our mindsets of making our voices count, we make choices of whom we become without thinking about self-discipline. Some of us signed up to the army to fight for the country and to make their voices count, like Nicholas did, whom I met in spring 2021. A British Army veteran in his late 30s who, after being injured in a war, found himself stuck in a wheelchair for over 10 years. Addictions to pain medication, smoking about 100 cigarettes a day, having post-traumatic stress disorder, surrounded with lots of highly saturated and sweet foods was unknown to him. Nicholas was drowning in depression. So many doctors told him he wouldn't be walking again. On top of it, his wife passed away a few months before meeting him, after meeting him. As Nicholas' mental health was affected, so was his physical health. Obesity, diabetes type 2, hypertension, high cholesterol, having pains all over the body, insomnia, and 2 carers visiting him every single day to wash him was a norm to him. As he used to be self-disciplined in so many wars back when he was a soldier, he was lacking in his life, in his personal life the same. He was defeated by disabilities and his own unawareness, sadly. However, he was very determined to get well again. He never gave up. No matter how bad he was feeling, he never lost hope. He knew that it's during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light, like he did on many battlefields. Hearing Tony Robbins saying that the purpose of pain is to move us into action and not to make us suffer, he decided to reach out to me. 6 months after, Nicholas needed his wheelchair no more. He started dancing, walking, running. He stopped smoking, all his medical conditions got reversed, and he needed medication no more either. He also lost much weight, and all in total became a totally new man. All the changes were initiated, designed, conducted, and made by us. No other external help was needed. That was all done to enormous self-discipline. I helped Nicholas to create once again. Once a soldier of the battlefield, now the soldier of conquering his own disabilities. So why does it matter? As we are in it together, we all have powers and strengths to make the changes for us and for the others, like I did with Nicholas, as long as we have self-discipline. Nicholas, as well as so many other amazing souls I have coached throughout my life, remind me of a butterfly. Why butterfly? As that proves that you can go through a great deal of darkness, yet become something beautiful. It shows the amazing power of the reframe, labeling things differently, or even not labeling them at all. It shows what discipline can do for us. Having self-discipline in your life, you can conquer anything you set up your mind and heart on. You can always change anything in your life. You cannot rewire the beginning, but with the self-discipline, you can add your own ending. You can start loving the past rather than escaping from it. You can finally train yourself in letting unwarranted emotions go. You can start living on purpose. You can make your dreams come true if you only believe and make it work for you and have a self-discipline. As how without self-discipline, we would go to places we go to. How without self-discipline, we would have what we have. How without this self-discipline, we would ever be more than who we are now. How without self-discipline, we would be happy at the older age. How without self-discipline, we would be well organized and happy. And how without self-discipline, we would be able to create meaningful, healthy, and happy relationship with others. How without self-discipline, you would be who you are now. I've been having a pleasure of changing lives so many people all throughout my life. Without self-discipline, I wouldn't be able to do so. As I'm sure you wouldn't be able to do as much as what you do right now. I wouldn't be able to fulfill my dreams, and you wouldn't be able to fulfill them either. I wouldn't be able to become who I always felt I meant to become, and you wouldn't be able to do it either. I wouldn't also be able to spread my happiness and passion at different events like today. So what does self-discipline mean to me? Definitely self-love. I grew up as a very shy, insecure girl, doubting myself every single day. I was afraid of my own shadow. I was trying to make myself invisible, always hiding, avoiding others, avoiding any challenging situations. I spent years neglecting myself, avoiding mirrors and personal conversations. I was doing everything I could have to dissociate myself from who I was. All was happening till one morning. Waking up at hospital after taking a huge overdose at the age of 18 made me realize I spent my whole childhood trying to please others. I became a molded product of expectations and wishes of everyone else, apart from my own ones. I lost myself in all of this. I didn't know who Maggie was. That Maggie took an overdose. New Maggie made a life-lasting decision to treat her life as an amazing, soul-enriching journey of self-discipline, self-love, self-worth, journey of creating happiness within herself, and finally living for herself, myself, aligned with my own values, inspirations, body and mind-soul connection, whilst pulling everyone else who needed my help the most. So far, I've been coaching for the last 20 years of my life inspiring, motivating, loving myself and others. So what about you? Are you as happy and healthy as you would like to be? Are you as successful as you would like to be? Because without self-discipline, you won't go far, my friends. If you need help, I'm here for you. And it was a pleasure being invited and speaking with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maggie. Another powerful speaker there, ladies and gentlemen. Maggie, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today, and again for making yourself vulnerable, sharing your story, and sharing that story about your client as well. I think it's so important what you've touched on, and I just want to reiterate the fact that you were talking about you just only believe. You only believe, you have your self-love, and that is the beginning of where you can find that self-discipline. And you talked about finding the new Maggie, and I absolutely loved your story. Thank you so much for sharing. I like the fact that you used the word conquering as well. When you said about, it was very emotional when you talked about the soldier conquering these challenges that he had in his life, just like he had been able to have that self-discipline in the military. Very, very powerful. And I hope that the audience have lots of takeaways that they can share with us in the Facebook. Please do share with us. And if you're watching the replay, put #replay. We'd love to hear what your takeaways are from all of our speakers today, including Maggie. Again, Maggie, we're so glad you were here with us today. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your wisdom.
I think you might have pressed mute there.
Isemin, you're on mute there.
Did I press mute? Sorry.
I think it muted you automatically. No worries.
I think, oh, I don't know what happened there. So let's try that again. Take 2. Here we go. Chris Smith. He is an author. He's from South Africa. We're so glad he's joined us today. His main expertise is writing novels, and he writes particularly Westerns, and he's signed to a publishing company in the USA, which is called Dusty Saddle Publishing. He has 16 books to his name that are all available to purchase on Amazon. One is a fantasy novel and all the others are Westerns. The 3 Western series that he currently writes are Blood on the Range, Steve Savage, Bounty Hunter, Jim Taylor, Mountain Man. And the characters in Steve Savage and Jim Taylor are actually related. They are cousins. And so the stories are connected in that way. So you can search for Chris Smith, the author, on social media, and you can find him at chrissmithnovels.com. Now, we're very excited to hear about Chris Smith, his take on self-discipline. So just sorry, bear with me. Just bear with me a second. There we go. I just wanted to press that. Yes. So Chris, are you ready to come to the stage? We're looking forward to hearing all your wisdom.
Already.
Great. Fantastic.
Hi guys. So first off, thank you so much for having me. I've broken my talk of self-discipline down into 8 distinct steps. So they're personal to me, but I think they can apply to everybody else as well. So the first one is, what is the definition of self-discipline? So it says that I have 2 here, which I think both apply. Self-discipline is the ability to push yourself forward. So in other words, you're not staying static, you're actually moving forward, which is essential. Stay motivated, which we all battle with, and I'm going to come to that later, and take action regardless of how you're feeling physically, number 1, and emotionally, number 2. The next definition is the ability to control one's feelings and overcome one's weaknesses. So the ability to control one's feelings and overcome one's weaknesses. So A very important caveat here is that our solutions aren't all the same because we're all different people. So what works for me is not going to work for somebody else, and what worked for them is not going to work for the third person. So some people have mental health issues that make it tougher to find solutions, and it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So the second definition I wanted to mention is a definition of madness, which I heard, which says that madness is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So if you lack self-discipline, then you won't change your routines and you'll get the same results. So it's a form of madness. An important step, this is point 3, is identify your goals and why you're doing what you're doing or trying to achieve what you want to achieve. Without a goal, you're actually not going to get anywhere. So that's an important point in self-discipline. So Navi actually mentioned that as well. So it was quite interesting to see that he mentioned quite a few points that I had. So self-discipline requires that you have a goal, and it's going to motivate you when times get tough. And it's just a fact of life. Paul said, like dying. A fact of life is that we're all going to face tough times. So you need to have that goal there. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And that's going to motivate you to keep going forward. So as we saw in the definition there, it's regardless of how you're feeling physically or emotionally. So I had some tough times last year. Going to share those. So I got divorced. I lost my father-in-law at the time to cancer. I lost a friend to COVID who was 38. I had a major shoulder up. Then small things, even small things as an author. You get criticism from readers who don't like your book for this, that, and the other. And somebody actually mentioned quite an important point, okay? Not everybody is going to like you as a person. We're all different, so you have to deal with that. Not everybody is going to like you as an author. But I was focusing, this person points out to me, they said, you've got however many ratings. I've got 16 books there. So let's say I've got, some of them have 270 ratings, but let's say I've got 2,000 ratings overall. I was concentrating on the 5 or 6 people who said negative things instead of the, 700 or 800 people, because there's some people who are mid-tier. But instead of the 700 or 800 people who gave me 4 and 5-star ratings, I was thinking, why doesn't that person like me? That one person, and it's not that they don't like my book. I was taking it personally as, why don't they like me? Because they've given me a 1-star rating. Meanwhile, it's just that person didn't like that particular book. And it's fine. It's not for everybody. And that's something I had to learn. So another thing for me, and I think for other people who suffer from depression, is my self-discipline is making myself accountable and surrounding myself with positive people. So we all face tough times, and you need somebody to keep you on track there. Because I tend to go and isolate myself and want to go stay in bed and hide away in a corner when I'm battling. You get anxiety and you worry about certain things. It's like having a gym partner, somebody who motivates you to get out of bed at 5 in the morning and go for a run or go to the gym. And sticking with that gym routine, be gentle on yourself. You can't just jump in straight away and think that you're going to have the habits straight up. To give you an example with my writing journey, when I started writing, I used to struggle to get myself to write 350, 500 words a day. It seems bad, but you get distracted with this, that, and other, and you've actually got to self-discipline yourself to think, I'm here to write a book. I need to sit and just bang out as much as I can. And it's like gymming. You don't start off bench pressing 100 kgs. You have to build up into it. And I got to the point where 3,000 words a day was doable. It was easy. And I achieved the maximum the one day of 9,090 words. You have a little tracker there which motivates you and keeps you, it shows you what you've done, and it just shows what happens when you build up. But you can't just go straight into, I'm going to write 9,000 words in a day. It doesn't happen like that. So be gentle with yourself and don't try and do too much. That's also a form of self-discipline. Know when you need to take a break. So point 6, you need to keep pushing to improve and push yourself forward. If you don't look at your work from 5 years ago and cringe a little bit and go, oh my word, what was I doing there? So I had to read one of my first book, actually, and that I started in 2014. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my word, why did I write that? Or why did I write that like that? And I cringed a little bit and I thought, okay, you know, it's bad because I'm like thinking, that book's out there in the public eye. But when I compare it to what I'm doing now, I'm actually criticizing my own work. And that's a good thing because I've moved forward, I've improved. And it didn't feel like it at the time throughout all the years. But now looking back, I can actually see that improvement. It's the same as if you gym. Or run. You're not going to start off running a marathon. You have to start with 2Ks. Then you look back in 2, 3, 4 years' time when you've actually been running consistently. And with us, it's the practice of self-discipline. You know, it's not something that happens straight away. You actually build up into it. And the point number 7 is you need to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you're not actually going to get anywhere. Self-discipline is useless without that plan because you're not working towards a goal. So my first book that I wrote, I didn't plan it out, and it took me 2.5 years to write 100,000 words because I'd go off on a tangent and I'd do this and I'd do that, and I was kind of writing the story for fun to see where it would take me. And I compare that to last year, where the first 5 months of last year, I wrote a book per month. So my books are 35 to 40,000 words, but I managed to achieve 1 per month. And that's because I planned out per chapter what I wanted to do. Then I had that big shoulder up that threw me off and sent my self-discipline spiraling. But then again, I've got those positive people to get me back on track. The last thing is that self-discipline also requires you to take breaks and to exercise. You've got to look after yourself, as Maggie said, you've got to look after yourself mentally, and you've got to look after yourself emotionally. You can't be on the go the whole time. You have to actually take time to switch off and to step away from work. You can't be obsessing about work the whole time because otherwise you're going to burn yourself out, and that's going to totally mess up your goals. So self-discipline is not just about pushing yourself the whole time, pushing. Self-discipline is actually what is best for me at this moment. I've had something go, like Navi said, sometimes you have those days where you just have to acknowledge, listen, this is a bad day and I have to go with that. You know, you can't just pull yourself out of the funk. And maybe like I had death of a family member and friends and things like that. And it's okay not to be okay. So you've got to accept that as well. And it's also okay to take time off to recharge your batteries. So that is it for me, guys. That's close on my 10 minutes. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Chris. And again, great wisdom shared with us today. I like that you put them into the point form and you know, you made reference to other people, other speakers' talks, because there's always a running thread, isn't there, through it when we're talking about the self-discipline.
If I didn't mention, Lisa, if I didn't mention that they said the same thing, it would have sounded like I was copying that. I was sitting here going, oh my word, he's just taken that from me. Oh my word, he just said it. Oh my word, he said that as well. Everybody, it just goes to show the half mind.
But when we listen as viewers, we're just hearing you telling us your story in your way. So even if you're almost repeating what someone else has said, you're saying it in a different way. And sometimes we need to hear things, you know, it's about those 7 points, isn't it, of contact. Sometimes we need to hear things over and over again before that one way that it's been said sticks with us and really resonates with us as a person. Yes, it's as Navi says, it's always from a different perspective. We've got some comments here. We've got, you know, about we've got thank you for your tips. We've got you know, you're right about not looking at your work and worrying about and seeing the bad things. What I picked up is, because I'm bad at doing this as well, you focus on those bad reviews and not on the, you know, like if somebody criticizes my drawing as an illustrator, I'm just like, you know, it's like, but what about all those hundreds of other drawings? Do you know what I mean? It's like you're saying about those reviews.
Take it personally.
It's true. And that it made me think of that saying, where focus goes, energy flows, because your energy is flowing to that, and that all you're thinking about is, oh my gosh, they've said this, and that must mean everyone's thinking that, and absolutely that is not the case. So yeah, thank you for sharing your wisdom. And again, you mentioned about the why. How important is that? And those people, that thread that's going through everything. We need people, we need that accountability, and we need that motivation as well to pull us back on the right track with our own self-discipline. Great wisdom there. Please, if you've got something to share in the Facebook thread, please do share it, and leave your questions as well for our speakers today, which we'll be getting to very, very shortly after we welcome our final speaker today. And I'm going to introduce to you the wonderful Joy. And here is Joy Bassey Isemin. She is have I muted myself again? Accidentally? No. Joy is
No, you're all
social
good.
She's a social media specialist. She's a marketing copywriter and a copy coach, ghostwriter, and content writer. She loves to help busy entrepreneurs and business owners find success with quality content, proven strategies, and converting copy. Joy helps people that wish to scale and learn lucrative digital marketing skills that will help them to set up for their financial freedom. And she helps her clients through her marketing consultations, content writing, ghostwriting, coaching, and public speaking. So I would like to welcome, without further ado, our final speaker to the stage this afternoon. Joy, please, can you step up? We're looking forward to hearing about what you have to share with us about self-discipline.
Hello, everyone. Actually, I'm so sorry I'm not with the flyer because I'm actually coming back from a webinar. So I'm still at the place, so I can't actually reach with my laptop. All right, so I'll just go straight to the point. So I've heard other speakers actually talk about different ways to build and maintain self-discipline. So today I will be giving tips and things that will help you to actually build and maintain this self-discipline. Okay, one key factor that have actually helped me to maintain self-discipline is actually the ability to be hungry for success. Okay, what helped me to build my self-discipline was the ability to be hungry for success. I wanted to be one of the richest girls or ladies in my community, so I had to discipline myself and leave other things that were not, I don't know, but striving and being hungry for success. Let me tell you my story. When I started my online business, I wasn't that disciplined. I wouldn't post, I wasn't visible, and I wouldn't post or do anything to achieve that. So, and I wasn't making money from my online business because of this. Okay, so, but at some point in my life, I was tired of not being able to afford anything that I needed. I was tired of the discouragement and everything, because anytime I tried to be something, I had so many discouragement around the corner. So I had to, because of my hunger for success, I had to block all those things and change my mindset towards money. I had to block my friends from I had to block people that were discouragement to me. So that actually helped me, okay, to build self-discipline because of my hunger for success. Okay, I did things I couldn't I wouldn't do if on a normal me. I love enjoyment, right? I am somebody that love enjoying myself, going to places, but because of self-discipline, to build and maintain my self-discipline, I stopped doing all these things. Okay. And from then I started doing what I didn't do. If you go to my social media, you can see that I I started posting. I'm now visible because I was able to start doing things that I couldn't do before. I started posting on my social media handles, especially Facebook, and that's where I met you guys. And I started buying courses, studying things I wouldn't have done naturally if it was for me. I started building my mindset towards money. And that actually attracted people and clients to me. So what actually tried me, what actually made me to be able to do all these things was my hunger for success. Okay, so for you to actually build your self-discipline, you must have something that you need, a goal you wish to achieve. Okay, something you wish to achieve, and you know that when you discipline yourself, you can actually attain that goal, achieve that mindset. For instance, if you wish to make more than 10K monthly in your online business or your business, you know that you need to do a lot of stuff you didn't do before, things that you couldn't do on a normal basis. You need to put out discouragement, leave all the negativity of the world, the influence. Yeah, so you need to remove your mind from that, block yourself from all these things, and focus more on yourself. Focus on building yourself, and focus on building things that you wouldn't leave because of discipline. And discipline helps you maintain all those things. So for me, I think one factor that have helped me to actually maintain self-discipline is my hunger for success. I want to be so damn successful like every other person in this room. So if you want to build your success and maintain everything, you need to be very, very successful. So that's all I have to say, because I'm actually in a noisy place. So I don't want to disturb people. So that's all I have to say. If you have any question, you can ask.
Joy, it's wonderful that you've joined us. Don't worry about being in a noisy place. We're so glad that you could be here. We know that you have been at an event. So I've just been looking at the chat, and there's lots of people that have said, great tips, brilliant wisdom, and people appreciating you sharing it, and the situation that you're in, coming to us as you have today. Thank you so much for joining us. And there's a comment here about mentioning that self-belief and removing those negative influences, and I really took from your speech as well that big thing about making sure that you are not focusing on negative, that you're taking everything that doesn't serve you away. Don't block what doesn't serve you, because then you're going to be able to focus on your discipline. And I loved the way you opened with us and says that for you it was about being hungry for success and being a successful young woman, and being able to have everything that you needed and be in that position. Someone else has written in the chat that breaking through the negativity. Well done, Joy. Super appreciate you sharing your wisdom. And I want to ask at this time, if there are any questions, please do put them in the chat for our speakers today. We've had lots of tips and wisdom from everybody. Thank you so much, Joy, for sharing your personal insight into building your own self-discipline, and congratulations as well, because taking those steps to do things that we're fearful of do take self-discipline. They do take finding that inner purpose. We've talked about the why a lot today. We've talked about using other people to strengthen you in accountability and motivation. And I really think that our viewers have got a lot of wisdom today from all of you speakers. And thank you, Joy, for being our last speaker today, joining us on the stage. And now I open up the questions to anybody. If you have any, please put them in the chat at this time. I think that all of our speakers have taken self-discipline from a different angle today, and I've taken it from right down into personal stories and personal experiences. And I'm so grateful that we've been able to hear from these wonderful experts in their field about how self-discipline has impacted them personally, and clients that they've worked with in different situations, and how they work to help possibly even their clients to work through self-discipline. Everybody here is an expert in their field, and that we have different fields here, but self-discipline will apply to all of them in their own little way. So we were able to see a little bit about what everybody does as well to help others within this summit, which I think was particularly extraordinary and wonderful to get to know these speakers a little bit as well and what they do to help the world as a whole. So I just want to say, without further ado, I want to say thank you to everybody who's joined us today. I want to invite you to pop a replay into the Facebook page, Global Speakers Talk. If you've enjoyed this, a review, apologies. If you've enjoyed this summit, please do let us know your feelings by sharing a review on the page. But also, we would love to hear your takeaways in the chat. If you are watching, please put #replay so that we know that you came and watched us today. For those of us who's joined us live, thank you so much for being here. For all the speakers, can't thank you enough. GST for organizing the event and allowing me the pleasure of hosting you and being privileged to be on the stage with such amazing people this afternoon.
Can I ask one question? Is that okay?
Yes, I would love to hear your question, Frankie. Please do.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much, speakers, for your amazing talks. I've really got a lot of vital information, what I've written down all the time. Took some really great notes. I know that you're all authors and most of you've written books, and probably I'd like to ask Chris as well. Chris, so I believe when you're writing books, I know you've written quite a lot of books, so I believe that speed reading can really help, and so I believe you don't have to read all the words in a book to understand it. So I believe 25-minute bursts of reading books says that you can sort of like take the information a lot more better reading books that way. Would you agree with that, or could you give me some tips on that, please?
I've actually heard that as well. They did a study where they said you just need I believe it was the first letter and the last letter of a word to actually make sense of that word. So the beginning, the everything in between can be a bit jumbled up and you still get the sense of it. So I actually like your idea of 25-minute bursts and sort of taking bits through. I've never tried speed reading, but I often skim through, I guess in a way I have been doing my own form, because I skim through details. I like to picture the scene in my own mind. So I don't need to know that, hey, Frankie's there, he's wearing a blue shirt, he's got on brown shoes, his socks are blue and yellow, etc., etc. I just need to know, hey, Frankie's this big guy, he's like quite tough looking, and he's going into this saloon and he's just wiping the floor with absolutely everybody. He's like the Western version of Jack Reacher. That's all I want to do. I've created the image in my mind. So I actually like what you said there about the 25-minute bursts. I did a writing exercise recently where we did something similar. We were doing 15-minute bursts of writing, and I got, I think it was 450 words in 15 minutes, something like that. But when I did the math, if I was able to write at that pace, I'd have, I think it worked out to 16,575 words in a day, something like that. That's how much I'd be able to write if I could keep up that level of productivity. But there's another thing of research that says that you can only concentrate for a certain amount of time before you need a break. So I think your 25 minutes there is spot on. You're going to get a lot more done. Do your 25 minutes, take a 10, 15-minute break, and then 25 minutes again. Just keep rinse and repeat. But get up, move around, get some coffee. Coffee is your friend, I believe. And then keep going from there.
Brilliant.
So much, thank you, guys. Thank you. It's great.
Thank you so much for your question, Frankie. Go ahead, Paul.
There's a great theory called the Pomodoro technique. It's the 25. It's you've got it there, Navi. It's a fantastic one. Could I offer something?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
please do.
I've got a poem here in front of me, and actually I think I'm going to build on a few things that a lot of people have actually said about self-love, about congratulating yourself and not beating yourself up too much, and knowing when, even if it literally is, today I got out of bed. Yeah, well done, me. Yeah. And sometimes we, we're overcritical, but actually to recognize when we're doing something really, really great is also important. And there's a great poem here, and it's a kind of affirmation for me that I see pretty much every day by the great thinker Ralph Waldo Emerson. And here's his definition of success: to appreciate beauty and to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, to know that one life has breathed easier because you have lived. That is success. Recognize when you do that, yourself a great big pat on the back.
That's great, Paul. Thank you, mate. It's great. Wow.
Thanks for sharing that. Really, really interesting. It's been a wonderful afternoon here with you, and I just want to say before we leave today, are there any more questions before we step away? I wanted to mention that we have got something exciting in the pipeline here at GST. I mentioned the GST page earlier, so it's Global Speakers Talk page. We have a page on Facebook where this is being streamed live, but we also have our very important community group that I touched on when I introduced myself today, which is an amazing community. We call it a family. It is a group of people who are encouraging to each other as we learn to share our voice and get better at our craft of speaking in front of the camera and sharing what we all have to say, which is, I think, is so important. I've got a comment here in the thread. I love how the speakers are kind enough to share their story and their own take on self-discipline. Self-discipline was shared by the different perspectives indeed, and he had so much to take away today. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I would like to say as well about the community, please do check it out. It's actually a Facebook group called Global Live Speakers Community. And if you can check that out and find it on Facebook, that is where our private group is, where we join together and we can practice speaking and getting a chance to tell everybody what we want to say in the world to make a difference. So without further ado, I'd like to thank you all for being here and for making this a wonderful, wonderful summit, our 24th. Again, we'll be with you again next month in February for the 25th summit. And we hope that you join us for that. We are very excited, like I said, about this upcoming thing. So watch out for it. GST Live coming up soon, more information. We'll keep you posted. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy. Don't forget to leave your takeaways and hashtag replay if you're watching the replay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lisa. Great job.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
You all again.